A lot of parents' minds are obviously on the fall return. What do you expect this return to look like as we continue to deal with the pandemic and surges in cases with the Delta variant?
It's a very fluid situation. I know you've heard that over and over everywhere you've been. One of the things that we're very fortunate here in Cole County, I know back on March 18th of 2020, it seems like forever ago, but a group of school administrators across Cole County public, parochial and private schools, we met actually at the meeting room in the Jefferson City Police Department to start talking about how we were going to deal with this thing called the coronavirus. And since that time, we've met every 2 or 3 weeks, actually continuing to meet as we prepare for this coming school year. Obviously, we're reviewing CDC guidelines as well as the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services guidelines. We had our plans in place last year. Felt like we had a very successful year dealing with some unprecedented obstacles. Now we have, an influx of cases currently. Really don't see a huge, when I say community transmission locally, right here. And I think that's really one of the most important parts is as schools are the same, we're not exactly the same. So we have different sizes. And the transmission across even a short period, a short distance can vary. So, I mean, it is one that you approach as a group, but again, individual school districts will be making decisions.
And with that, I know some school districts do have trackers on their website. Does the district have a tracker where it tracks student or staff cases? During
the course of last year, we had every case we put on there. I think we ended up with like 60 pages, so maybe that's about 180 occurrences of a positive case of a student or a staff member, and don't quote me on all those numbers, but we also had a dashboard that we had. But at the end of the school year, the board asked us to stay status quo through the conclusion of this last school year, and I know a lot of school districts changed a lot of their face covering requirements and a lot of things down the stretch. We didn't. We just stayed we stayed status quo through the end of the school year. Then for summer school, they said, let's drop all the COVID protocols and let's see what happens. We had a very successful summer school. We said at that point we're going to evaluate the data and see where we're at, and that's kind of what we're doing as we speak. Hopeful that we wouldn't need face coverings, that social distancing wouldn't be concentrated on as much. What we want to do is to do the best we can for our students. We want to create a positive environment for them. In-person learning is the best method of learning. We had a very successful, I'm going to say, academic school year last year when, I hear a lot of stories about people feeling like the experience wasn't positive. I felt like under the circumstances, our students made it a very positive experience.
When it comes to coronavirus vaccinations, does the district have a stance either way?
Well, right now, and I'm watching the media when it comes to vaccinations, we hear about the importance of vaccinations, and it said, let's go back to masks. Actually, let's go to face coverings. They say, we've got to. The story is if we all use face coverings, we can curb the transmission of the COVID. And then the next news story is about how viruses and other bacteria and illness are caused by wearing masks. So that really sends a two-way message. The same thing in regards to vaccines right now. You hear that, vaccination is the answer. The next article is, hey, my 16-year-old got a vaccination and we had to rush him to the hospital the next day with a heart attack. There's a lot of mixed messages out there. What we want to do as school administrators is what's right. And it seems like every day we're getting a message of this is right, this is right, this is right, or this is right. There's nothing I want more than to best serve the students of our community and our families. We're working our way through there, but right now, vaccination, the key with vaccinations is, as I see the guidelines, if you've been vaccinated, it pretty much exempts you from quarantine unless you have symptoms. So, you know, I guess the best way to make sure that you're going to have the opportunity to be in person, regardless of you coming into contact with a positive or not, is to seek the vaccination. Now, we had our mass vaccination event for all our educators here in Cole County back in the spring. Very successful event. I'm going to say probably about 60 to 65% of our faculty and staff were vaccinated during that event. And then the subsequent 21-day second shot event. You know, and I say I don't really have the numbers on the number of students 12 and over at this point. I think what we want to do is provide people that desire the vaccine, working with the community health center, maybe to bring their mobile unit out during our registration time to give them the opportunity. You know, right now there is no mandate, or you know what I mean. It's really hard to create that stance based on all the information and mixed messages that we continue to receive. But it is what it is what we're finding out. Well, I think definitely you need to recommend them.
Okay, as a district.
Yeah, as a district. I mean, again, but then the next thing you know, the story that I just said, you see on the news where somebody was vaccinated and then all of a sudden they had a very adverse reaction to it. Ultimately, that message doesn't make people extremely comfortable with that, because that's a parent, that's a child. But I'm a math and science guy, and you know, what's science say? You know, and again, if science says vaccinations are the way that we're going to do this, then you know what? We're going to support that recommendation, and we're going to do our best. But you know, I'm not so sure we're in a position that we can require. Again, everybody's had the opportunity to be vaccinated. I think vaccinations are readily available. And again, what we're going to do for registration is, you know, provide an easy opportunity. If it's the Pfizer shot, 21 days later, they'll need to get their second dose, or don't know exactly how that works. Going to leave that to community health center. But you know, we got a lot of great things that are, I call them collateral benefits of COVID-19. And that, one of those things is the relationship that exists between the Cole County Health Department and school administrators across Cole County. Us trying to work together to provide a safe and healthy environment for our students, knowing that in-person learning is the best method.
Obviously, with vaccination, you're dealing with a tale of two worlds. Students under 12 still can't get the vaccine because it's approved. Will elementary education look different from middle and high school for you guys at all?
You know what? It was a great year last year, really at every level. You know, maybe, you know, I look back at the elementary last year, we had no mask requirements. We did have kids that wear masks, and our kids are very respectful of students that want to wear face coverings. You know what? We love people. We love each other. We want the best for one another. Again, last year, K through 4 in our elementary school, you know, just a very successful year. Now, in this building that we're in right now, 5 through 8, you know, during on the bus, during passing periods, in moments that you could not social distance, we asked that kids wear face covering. And, you know, and we did that really through a time when a lot of other people were saying, you know what, we don't need to do this anymore. But, you know, we wanted to stay, you know, status quo through the course of the year, and we did. And then in the high school, you know, I remember the student athletes over there bringing a sign, you know, don't be the reason we cancel the season. I don't think anybody enjoys wearing face covering, all right? We'd wear face covering all the time. We just enjoyed it. But you know what? We wanted to do everything that we could to be here the next day. And our motto, and I say our motto, coming from our students, was, you know, let's all be all in for the next day. And whether you like it or not, if this is going to give us an opportunity to be here tomorrow, let's do what it takes to be here. And you know, as I you know, look at some of the procedures that changed during the course of the year, you know, in regards to close contacts, considered close contact or be quarantined. When we said, you know what, if you have a face covering on full time, you know, being considered a close contact, you know, there's an opportunity, you know what, face coverings seem to become a little more popular at that point. You know, maybe the vaccine, you know, going that route. But, you know, we talk about the vaccine, then all of a sudden now we're talking about face coverings, you know, going backwards. And I don't know what forward and backwards is, you know, in this situation. But again, we just want to do what's best for kids and our students and staff.
When did you guys take all of the masking away?
The board voted to stay status quo, even though we are hearing a lot of other school districts across Missouri saying, you know what, we're not going to continue our COVID protocols. Our board just said, you know what, kids have done outstanding, the families have done outstanding. Let's just make it through the end of the school year. Again, our level of communication really kind of decreased a little bit when we got in summer school. We did have 2 positive student cases and 1 positive teacher case during summer school. Actually, the student, one was actually before summer school started and the other was right at the conclusion or right after summer school ended. But, you know, parents were getting bombarded with emails, texts, or however communications, and we got a lot of levels of communication. You know, really what we're going to do is concentrate on those people and how we did it during summer school, and not knowing exactly how we'll do it moving forward was, you know, more just those people that would be considered close contacts or, you know, courtesy calls for the fact that you're not considered a close contact, but you know what, you may want to be monitoring for symptoms moving forward. You know, you wouldn't be classified as a close contact. You're not quarantined. But you know what, your child was in a room, call it 6 feet proximity or 3 feet or whatever feet. You know, sometimes it's just important to get that message out there, and I felt like we did a tremendous job of communicating where we were at, and we changed that a little bit for the summer, but don't know exactly where we'll go for the fall yet.
As you're headed into the fall, what does your staffing situation look like?
Right now we're looking really good. But again, a fluid situation. We get to the point we were like in November last year. It was a little tougher. You know, you have a global pandemic going on. You have individuals who really make a decision on their part to, you know what, kind of remove themselves from the substitute teacher list until this time has passed. And we had some people later in the year kind of add themselves back to the substitute teacher list. But in November, I can tell you it was pretty tough. That was probably our greatest level of occurrence. We did have a couple of virtual days to prepare for the event that we might need to do it a little more long term. Those days really followed Thanksgiving break. You know, a lot of conversation was about, you know what, people are going to be gathering and we don't know what the levels, so we decided the Monday and Tuesday after Thanksgiving to do 2 virtual days, and those virtual days were actually grades 2 through 12. Kindergarten and first grade came in person. I'm not so sure we didn't have 100% attendance in kindergarten and first grade both those days. Buses weren't very crowded, but we had those individuals here. Our parents, you know, we survey a lot to get input from our parents, and you know, obviously that age group, you know, was not nearly at the high risk of transmission as the older grades. So, you know, it's a fluid situation. I wish I could say, you know what, this is exactly what it's going to look like. I can't remember last year. I want to say like the Thursday before school started on Monday, the board approved the final guidelines for this is what the first day of school will look like. I wish I could say this is the date it's going to be decided. There's a lot of situations going on, whether it be with face coverings. You know, the most important, and people want a number, you know, the level of community spread and transmission, right? You know, is that district, is that building, is that grade level, is that classroom? I mean, we have to look at it from so many different variables, and that's what we're going to do. Last year, we actually had our 5th grade go virtual. Like 2 weeks. We had some parent-teacher conference days in there and some other days that we weren't going to be in school anyway. But, you know, we had reason to believe that, you know, there may be some spread amongst that grade. So we reached out. The 5th grade went virtual again for a couple weeks. I mean, we may be in a situation where we need to deal with that. Maybe it comes down to, you know what, we're not going to require, face coverings will be optional, but if we get to a certain level of community spread and transmission during that period of time, we're going to ask people to utilize face coverings in certain situations. And as soon as we get back underneath those target numbers, we would change back. And again, everybody's wanting to really narrow it down to a number or a date or stuff like that. You can't find a better job right now than being a school administrator, not just in Missouri, but across the country and the world, right? There's some tough decisions, but you know what? We do what's best for kids.
Due to the virus, will you be giving staff, if they do get sick, any additional sick leave or paid time off, or are there any changes in the student attendance policy if you come down with COVID?
Yeah, obviously we had some provisions in place last year. Those decisions have not been made. I know federally, and there were some requirements in regards to leave related to COVID-19. At this point, I think most of that leave has since expired. The key is, if you're sick, stay home. When you talked about student attendance, I think that made a huge difference. When I look at our buildings and ground staff, and they're thinking about, illness we felt like was down last year, so we try to identify maybe a few other things that we did. Well, in our elementary school, really across the district, we got rid of our drinking fountains. Right? So we went just to the bottle fillers. We're not so sure that we're convinced that maybe that in itself, not necessarily face coverings, especially at the elementary school level. When they come out of physical education or they come out of recess, everybody files to the drinking fountain. The bottle filler ultimately is created different opportunity that maybe has lessened the passing of germs from one to another. So, looking at all our options moving forward.
Are you guys going to have any COVID-19 protocols in classrooms, or like any distancing or extra sanitizing?
Yeah, last year the distance was 6 feet. Now the recommendation is 3 feet. Ultimately, it comes down to the type of interaction that occurs. And, you talk about distance. Well, if I have COVID, or if I'm ill and I get in your face and sneeze 3 times, that doesn't matter to me if it's 15 minutes or our distance for, One thing that we like to do is make sure we monitor the types of interactions that occur between adults and students in regards to distance, as well as students and students. Because there's not that old 6 feet or 3 feet in 15 minutes. If we're back to back for 3 hours, we may not really have an opportunity to transmit. But again, face to face, ultimately I'm yelling, I sneeze, I cough, or do something like that. Again, every situation is unique, and in this day and age, you have to trust those monitoring and investigating those situations. So I go back to last year, March of 2020, March 18th, when we start talking about COVID. We're learning about the coronavirus. What is it? At that time, we really didn't know exactly what it was. Then all of a sudden, we're talking about how do you investigate? What are the things that you're going to be looking for? And that's really one of the key things. When we say status quo, we stayed full protocols through the end of the school year. So then the board said, you know what, we're going to relieve all the COVID protocols for summer school, and that's what we did. Really no decision has been made moving into the 21-22 school year.
How does the district plan to handle quarantines or positive COVID-19 cases in the classroom? Are you still going to be notifying people, or do they have to quarantine if they are vaccinated? So many scenarios.
Yeah, a lot of decisions like that have not been finalized at this point. We did change a little bit of our communication protocols. Instead of bombarding the kindergarten parents with a high school case, or the high school parents with a 4th grade case or anything like that. But we'll communicate exactly how those communications will be made. Again, when we first started, we worked hand in hand with the Cole County Health Department, and we still work hand in hand with the Cole County Health Department in regards to our communication when there's a positive case. You know, but at one point, you know, they were sending out people to do the investigations, to determine those people. I mean, obviously undertaking a huge process. We actually trained ourselves with their guidance on how to contact investigators. You know what, I can't say enough about our building administrators and our program directors. I mean, they have became members of the Cole County Health Department when it comes to COVID. And tireless workers, and it's just, it's been the most tiring year of my career, and this is year number 31. I can't find a better career out there, though. I love coming to work every single day. It's tough decisions. You know, I got people that are calling going, Jim, you better have everybody wearing a mask or we may not send our kids to school this year. Then the next call I get right after I hang that call in is, you know what, you can't make my kid wear a mask. So I've got people on both ends, and I've got a lot of people in the middle. I found out this: we are not going to get to a consensus agreement on how we're going to get this school year started. You know, but what we're going to do is to do the best that we can to positively impact the students that live in our district. And my job as superintendent is to serve everyone. And this is Blair Oaks R2 School District. It's not Jim Jones School District. It's not any individual school district. What we want to do is make decisions that we wish 100% of the people agree with, but that we feel are in the best interest of giving us the greatest opportunity to be open and in person as many days as possible during the course of the school year.
And what will after-school activities and athletics look like? Did you guys last year have any protocols in place?
We did. You know, athletically, especially for our indoor activities, we limited the number of fans, and really people were very respectful of that process, not envying the position that we were in. Along the way, again, maybe some afternoon clubs and activities were altered to some degree. You know, kids, I say, love to be at school. You know, I can't say I loved every day. I'm not sure everybody loves every day, but, you know, kids want to be amongst each other. You know, we talked this year about, you know, education is more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? This year it's been about the emotional health, it's been about the physical health, it's been about the mental health of our students, giving them the greatest amount of normalcy possible. There's so many things that we're asked to be a part of, and all we want to do is be a part of the solution, however we can do it to best serve our community.
So will athletics be pretty much back to normal?
Well, I'd like to say everything's going to be back to normal, but I'd be a little naive to think that we are not going to have some things to consider moving forward. That's just where we're at, and there may be some changes during the course of the year, and I know our community will roll with it and do their best to help us in those processes.
And then for families who may have concerns about returning in person due to maybe an immunocompromised individual or another reason, is there a virtual option?
Yeah, the virtual option really is really a pre-COVID option. You know, the MOCAP, or what was previously MOVIP option, you know, has been available for students and families for a few years. I think this past year, you know, if we have 1,243 students, I think we had approximately 27 students that took the virtual option. I know we'll have a few students take the virtual option, and again, that's really a student/family decision, and we're going to support that. You know, so that option is available, and really, COVID or not, that option exists for Missouri students.
And depending on the case rate, if the cases go down or up and a parent decides maybe in October that they want to switch either way, is that possible, or do they have to stick with either virtual or in-person for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and again, I leave that to people that know that area a lot better than myself. I do know this, that there's a point if you started virtual and decided to move to in-person. I mean, we're not going to discourage that, but to that virtual provider, we're still going to pay them. That's really a part of how that piece works, you know, and then vice versa. You know, really it's a case-by-case basis.
How will snow days be handled this year? Will you guys be doing virtual, or will snow days be as they have been?
I'll tell you, you know, last year we had a very mild winter, right? Much of the winter. And we had a teacher in service. And we were spread out across the high school gymnasium bleachers. And I remember going, what a blessing. No snow days this year. It's been beautiful. Shouldn't have said that, right? I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think the Arctic blast, right? The old February Arctic blast hit Missouri. You know, we actually prepared ourselves. We sent Chromebooks home with our students K through 12, and really got to give the board credit, you know, for their vision a few years ago. I don't think they had COVID in their mind, but you know, we wanted to prepare ourselves for the future. Having Chromebooks in place for all students K through 12 was an advantage for us. But we did have 3 days, and going in, we said, you know what, we're going to go, if we have one, you know, a snow day, you know what, we started talking about, sometimes that's a good physical health, mental health, and emotional health day to just have a day to go sled riding, right? Whether that be parents with their kids, if it's that bad, or just sit and have a cup of coffee if you're an adult. You know what, sometimes snow days aren't bad. So we thought, you know what, if we don't have too many, but when we knew that the great Arctic freeze was going to hit, we said, okay, we thought well, it's going to last maybe as many as 2 days. When we got to the third day of virtual, it was getting a little tougher, because when you get to dealing with grades K, 1, 2, there's a little bit of preparation that you need to do, but you're not going to find a more tech-savvy group than Missouri students when it comes to technology. And I don't care if they're kindergartners or seniors or anything in between. But, you know, well, that's going to kind of be on a case-by-case basis. You know what, a good snow day can be a very positive in the long run. But we did have 3 virtual days last year that could be, and again, there's what's called AMI and then AMIX. We got to make sure that what we do is obviously in alignment with what the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education says we can do as well.
What pandemic changes have proven useful during a normal school year that maybe you'll use going forward?
Well, I just talked about the bottle fillers, right? Something our buildings and grounds staff said, you know what, there may be some other things that are making a positive difference other than just face coverings, social distance, things along those lines. But, you know, we would like for school to operate as close to normal as possible. That's really the expectation of our students and our staff. Can't say enough about our teachers and the adaptations that they made through the course of the year. You know, when you're in this business, you're in the service business of students and your families. And you know what, it was a challenge. And earlier I pointed out our building administrators, but you can't say enough about our certified staff, our classified staff, for the job that they did over the course of the year. And I know right now they're gearing up to face really the challenges that we don't even know what they are yet.
Just this afternoon, the CDC will recommend everyone in K through 12 schools wear a mask, regardless of vaccine.
Yeah, and again, we will continue to look at the guidance from the CDC, the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Service, the Cole County Health Department, you know, and really that's new to me, but I can tell you everything will be considered moving forward. Again, I say as a Cole County education group, we work together. and we're not exactly the same. We have very large school districts, we have very small school districts, and a lot in between. So saying that everybody's going to do exactly the same thing is maybe unrealistic, but you know, when we hear somebody say, hey, they're doing this at Calvary Lutheran, or they're doing this at Jeff City, or they're doing this at Helias Catholic, or they're doing this at any other school district in the county, we have communication with one another to understand the processes in their decisions. So that makes it very helpful. But I know that we'll be convening in the weeks ahead here to continue to focus on our planning, which ultimately will funnel down to a district level plan.
Was summer school enrollment up from previous years?
It was up. It was up from last year. Again, summer school is really, I say, extremely popular. You know, sometimes it's all about learning. Sometimes it's all about socialization. Sometimes it's all about a combination of everything. But our summer school was up. Our driver's education program did not happen last year, but it did happen this year. So that helps the numbers by 50, that in itself. But our numbers were very similar to the year before, but they were a little bit greater. But you know, I don't think really the thought of, you know, in regards to COVID had really a huge bearing in that. I will say that I'm starting year number 31, and it has been the most challenging year in my career. 30 years is really a pretty good target to retire. We've got a new high school under construction. When I got here, we had a K through 6 building, and I was the principal of the 7 through 12 building, so we only had 2 buildings. So when I do retire, and actually we didn't have an athletic complex of any kind, we had to go all over the district to play sports. Been a part of some pretty awesome things, and it's not about, hey, I bet you Jones leaves after this new high school is done. It really doesn't have anything to do with that. We've got a great relationship with our Board of Education, and you know, retirement is going to occur at some point. I just want to make sure that I put in place mechanisms that are going to allow the next individual that assumes that role to have a great opportunity for success. Trying to please everybody, it sure is tough. You sure love to do that, and you know that this is a very politicized situation, polarizing, you know, and what I want most is the best for our students. And ultimately, I used to visit when I was a high school principal with our health instructor. It doesn't matter how much math you know, or how much English you know, or science or social studies. If you're not healthy, all that stuff is irrelevant. Maybe health class, maybe we should have just 45 sections of health, you know, just require more health. And the health teachers right now, if they're watching this going, yeah, I love that guy. But you know what? It's about the well-being of our young people. And I felt like we had a great year. And we're talking about workforce development and a lot of things across our state. And, you know, we went to school 169 days, I think, of 174 that we originally intended. You know, I'd like to think that we are providing our students with the opportunity to learn the skills necessary to enter into the workforce and make a difference. And we know that there's a lot of positions right now that I see a lot of employers looking for people. I mean, I feel like we're creating an opportunity for our kids to seize that opportunity if they so choose. And I know 85% of our graduates go to a 2 or 4 year college out of high school. Others join immediately into the workforce or the military. You know, love this community. I wouldn't be here for 21 years if I didn't. It was a great place I came with a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old, had another child, all girls, had our first grandchild, a grandson that turned 3 months 2 days ago. You know, I've been blessed with the opportunity to be here, watch students and families do some incredible things to make a school of 500 turn into a desirable place that now has 1,243 students. I didn't do that. I had a great seat on a bus that was moving in the right direction. I just can't say enough. And again, tough to get full consensus, and that's not going to happen. But you know what? It's just great to serve this community, but you know what? We always say around here that challenges are opportunities, and the obstacles are the things that distract us when we take our eyes off the goal. So what we want to do is have our goal to best serve the students and the families of our community.